get my 6 and get the young ones out of the room for this story. It's a beautiful fall-like afternoon. Some of the leaves are starting to fall. That's why they call it fall, because leaves don't autumn off of a tree. This time of year they fall. There went one. No matter what, under all circumstances, no matter how much life gets you down, stay weird, brah. Okay. So we're going to take a look around at this almost fall paradise. We're less than a week away from fall now. And it's going to go like this. You can get my 6. See what may or may not be back here in the meadow or in the forest, in the fields. I'm going to tell you a story, and again, it wasn't tongue-in-cheek when I said get the kids out of the room, because there's some adult situations in this one, okay? I'm going to keep it YouTube appropriate, but still, it wouldn't take a genius to figure out what I'm talking about when I say, okay, the kids out of the room? Yeah, okay. When I say something like she purposely exposed her breasts to us, okay? So I was in Costco, of all places, here not too long ago, and there was a woman who purposely exposed her. That's not true. I was trying to be funny. When I try, it's probably not very funny. But I was in Costco, of all places, here not too long ago, and I hear somebody behind me, a man, say my name. There's gnats like crazy here. That's why I'm doing this. Said my name. And then they said, as I live and breathe. And I thought, well, that sounds like somebody from back in Appalachia, because I haven't been to a whole lot of places where people will say your name and then talk about how they live and breathe. What's up, girl? Here's a couple deer back here. I don't know if you can see them. Probably not, no. So we're probably going to be safe up here as far as him, her, it, or they go, because them deer usually don't come around when they're around. I don't know. Maybe they do. Fixing to find out. So I turn around, here's this guy. He looks about my age, but I don't know him. I don't know him from Adam, as I live and breathe. About my build, no hair, completely bald. And he says, it's me, Sean. And I'm thinking, who is this? Somebody I worked with at the post office? He goes, okay, imagine me blowing by your ass with 20 meters left to go in a college cross-country race to make you yet again the number 5 man on the team. I'm like, no way. This is my buddy Sean. Ran cross-country and track together in college. And we were always 4th and 5th man. We were always going back and forth. And we wanted to make sure to at least be 5th man so we could make the travel team. Because top 5 runners on your team in cross-country scores, if you don't know that. So in most colleges, they only take 7 guys or girls on the girls' team, women's team. So, you gotta hold on to that number 5 spot if you want to go, to the races. So this story is not about Sean as much as it is about one of Sean's old girlfriends from back in the day. The only way to begin this story is at the beginning, even though I've already started kind of at the end. Let's go back to the beginning. So I think it was the end of our 3rd year, maybe 2nd year, I don't know. We're at a party. It wasn't a track team party. It was spring, though. It was the end of the spring semester. Just some party. And there was this girl there with her boyfriend. They were known as the witch and the warlock because of how they dressed, their physical appearance. They wore makeup. To describe it, it was probably okay, so I'm a Gen Xer. This was probably when, you think of, emos, people that are maybe referred to as emos. They wear the dark colors, sometimes baby powder on their face or white makeup. These two would appear to be the original emos. I think my generation started that just as we were growing old enough to know better, but whatever. um, but they were known as the witch and the warlock, not just because of their appearance, but because it was rumored that they practiced black magic, that they would have seances, that the girl, she was like 20, and absolutely gorgeous, and you could see it despite the emo stuff, you know. They were at this party, and me and my buddy Sean and some other guys were on the other side of the room of the witch and the warlock. They always kept to themselves. They always just kind of like, they looked spaced out, and they probably were, and they never really talked to anybody, but you would see them places. So we're there, you know, we're throwing back some cold ones. We were college students. And I look over that way, and I see that this young woman has, like, she was wearing like some low-cut, loose-fitting top and like a skirt, and she had chains around her waist. And she would always wear like a collar, like a dog collar, and there was a chain and a leash on it, and the warlock always held on to the leash. Seriously, you could see them walking across campus, and it's like he was walking his dog. I mean, this is like, seriously, the early days of goth, okay? So when I looked over that way, I noticed that she had allowed her blouse to slip down low enough to where you could entirely see one of them. I'm going to say it like that, just to keep this as clean as possible. You could see it all, and I know she was purposely exposing herself for attention. Well, I tried not to pay any attention to it. Well, here's my buddy Sean beside me. Once he notices it, he starts jumping up and down, and he's grabbing me. He's like, "Oh my God, do you see that over there?" And I'm like, "Shh, keep it down." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I see it." He's like, "Do you think she knows?" I'm like, "Dude, of course she knows. She's doing it for attention, and she's getting yours right now." And I glanced over there briefly, and you could see she was seeing Sean's reaction, and she was just smiling from ear to ear, and just, she was lit up like a Christmas tree. But her smile, it wasn't like an innocent, almost childlike, you know, Christmas morning, Christmas tree smile. It was a smile of deviance. And my gut told me, stay away from her. I don't care how pretty she is. I don't care. She might look good on the outside, but as far as what's on the inside, there's something devious there. And I tried to tell this to my buddy. He's like getting all excited. And the more excited he got, the more devious she appeared. Well, trying to remember the facts as they are. We had summer break, came back to school in the fall. Cross-country season. You know, me and the guys were practicing, doing the meets and all this stuff. Well, that girl came back to campus, and she was almost unrecognizable. She no longer dressed up like the emo. She wasn't doing the emo thing, didn't look like a witch, wasn't wearing... The guy was gone. He was just gone. We would later find out... They say watch the trees too. When demons be among us, they take various forms and hang out at various locations. So continue to get my 6. Anyway, we would later find out, sadly, that guy, her boyfriend, the warlock, had gotten killed in a single vehicular car accident. Hit a tree in Kentucky, of all places. And we were growing up in West by God, Virginia. That's where we're going to college, there in West by God, Virginia. No alcohol was involved, nor were any drugs. Perfectly healthy 22, 23-year-old guy just hit a tree. It's gone. So when the girl came back to campus, she was like Little Miss Innocent Schoolgirl. I mean, she wasn't wearing the checkered skirts and all that, but she was no longer doing the emo witchy thing. She didn't have the black eye stuff and the white paint, and she was beyond she was beyond presentable. She was gorgeous, but my gut was still telling me, stay away, stay away. Well, you watch back here. I'm hearing footsteps, but I'm seeing nothing, okay? Something might be getting closer to listen to this story. So, Sean, it turns out, had a class with this girl, started talking to her. Next thing you know, they're dating, right? They're dating. And he was so excited. I don't know if it was his first real girlfriend, but he was smitten with this girl beyond measure. I mean, it was just, and she seemed completely different. She would always talk. She was always friendly. She was always cordial. But something else happened one day. We had to go up this very steep hill to get to campus because we were renting an apartment. Sean never lived with me. Me and a couple other guys were renting an apartment. That was a very distinct tree knock coming from right back here somewhere. So we're hearing footsteps and tree knocks. Continue to get my 6, okay? Which means watch my back, look behind me. A lot of newcomers have been asking that in the comment section. So I'm walking up this hill, and Sean's girlfriend, now girlfriend, actually lived off of a side road, off of the main road, going up this hill. I'm going up the hill, and as timing would have it, I see a cardinal just fly in front of me, almost into my face. And I remember jerking back like that. I was thinking, wow, that was close. And then just only like maybe 2 seconds later, I heard like a thud, like the cardinal had flown into something. And so I stopped and I looked over, and Sean's girlfriend and her roommates were renting a house right there. So I look over and I see Sean's girlfriend. She had just come out the front door. This cardinal, and we've had him do it here too. I think birds can't see glass or anything. It flew into the glass and like knocked itself out. So Sean's girlfriend comes out of the house, and I see her bend over and pick up this cardinal and hold it in her hands. And I think, well, you know, I'm not, maybe I'm wrong. I'm getting the wrong vibes off of this girl. She's going to try to help this bird, you know, nurse it back to life. Next thing I know, I see her pluck one of its feathers. I mean, this is animal cruelty, right? Well, that brought the bird out of, you know, unconsciousness, and it starts squawking and squawking. And I watch, and she continues to do it. Pluck, pluck. And this bird's like screaming and croaking and groaning, and it starts out loud, but it's getting, you know, softer and softer. So I walk over there, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she turned around, and her eyes were just like, she was shocked, like she got caught. And she's like, oh, this bird flew into the window, and I think it broke its wing, so I'm trying to reset its wing. And I looked at it, and it was dead. And I said, well, it's dead now, but you were clearly not setting its wing. You were plucking its feathers. And she was like, why would I do that? And there was like 4 or 5 feathers on the ground there at her feet from where she'd done this. I was like, I don't know. Why would anybody do that? I mean, that is just cruel. And I saw that same smile come across her face that I saw at that party the year before when she looked like a witch or a emo or whatever. A smile of deviousness. Like she took joy in suffering. Like she had taken joy out of doing what she had done to the bird, much like she had taken joy out of observing my friend Sean jumping up and down like a Mexican jumping bean, because, you know, she was exposing herself. I saw it. I chose to like not let it be known that I saw, and did my best to ignore it. As, you know, other people probably saw it as well, but they were ignored. But Sean, man, she could tell that he was into it. And so it's like, I got the feeling when I saw that situation going on there with that bird, that she had made him her target, you know, because like he was the one that would fall for the spell or whatever. And she's like, oh, well, you know, with the bird, she goes, well, it's dead, so I guess we'd better bury it. And I'm looking down here in front of me now, because we got a lot of vertically challenged individuals who say that I give tells, which is a sign that I'm being dishonest by the way my eyes go certain ways. I'm watching yellow jackets because there's 3 of them flying close to the ground in front of me, and I might have another nest. I might have to make another how to kill yellow jackets and ground hornets with Dawn dishwashing detergent and water video. No, I'm just trying to make sure I don't get stung, brah. I'm allergic to these sons of gunses. So anyway, she said, you want to bury it? And I said, no, you bury it. And I took off walking back out to go up to the main road and go up the hill to campus. And I turn around just as I'm making that turn, and I see her just lift the lid of a trash can and throw the bird in it and shut the lid and go inside. So her and Sean and her, they dated through that whole year. And now my last year, I didn't go to that school. That I transferred to another state college so I could graduate a semester sooner. And when I left that college, until I saw Sean in the Costco the other day, I had not seen him since. And we're talking 25 years ago. Okay? So we were catching up. We talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. We exchanged numbers and email addresses and stuff. He doesn't live in Charlottesville, but he lives close enough to come into town for the Costco and other things. I asked him, whatever happened to that, the girl, is that your wife now? Do you and her share children? He's like, what girl? And I'm like, the witch and the warlock. And then she came back looking like, Little Miss Innocent schoolgirl. And he's like, oh, no, man, that didn't work out well at all. I'm like, how so? And he told me, and I'm going to give you the short version because we're getting close to 20 minutes here and people say I talk too much. But here's the short version. The following year, I transferred to graduate a semester earlier. So I graduated actually after the first semester. I had a winter graduation. You can do that. And you guys know that. They went through the fall semester together. And then the following spring semester, they were both going to graduate. Both of them were going to graduate, get their bachelor's degree. And like myself, they were first generation college students. So that's a pretty big deal, right? Where we come from, it's not just a given that, of course, you grow up and you go to college, because we were the first ones in our family lines to do it, okay? Which is not uncommon in Appalachia and places like the Deep South, okay? And a lot of urban areas, a lot of inner city folks. He told me she convinced him to drop out of college. He was an AB student. She was an AB student. But she convinced him to drop out of college because she had grandparents in Kentucky, oddly, where her boyfriend had his single vehicular crash and died. Yeah, it's a yellow jacket. She had grandparents who were offering her their farm. They were old. They were like in their 80s, and they had like a 200-acre farm in Kentucky. And she was given an ultimatum. First come, first serve. We're coming to you first. You come here. You can farm this land. When we die, you'll get this land. And even though my buddy Sean didn't necessarily want to drop out of college to go do that, he was so in love with this girl that he did. Okay? So they go there. And he told me that one of the strangest things happened there shortly after they arrived. The property shared a lake with, they had like 200 acres, and then there was a lake that was halfway on their property, and the other half of that lake was in like a very well spaced out subdivision. So their neighbors weren't close, but if they were to go to this lake, it was like a 5-acre, like a very large pond, okay? Very large pond. On the other side of that water, there were a couple of houses, and then, of course, the subdivision spread out, and there were hundreds of houses, but they were all on like 2 or 3 acre lots. So it wasn't like, cookie cutter side by side by side by side by side, like you see in a lot of places. Only a short while after they'd gotten there, there was a girl that was about 10 or 12 years old that used to come up to her grandparents' farmhouse and get vegetables or berries and many things, and she would take it home. And I guess the girl's mother had grown up on a farm, but she now lived in a subdivision. She knew how to like can and jar and all this stuff. So this little girl would come up and she'd get the vegetables and the fruits, eggs sometimes, but her mother would can the excess, whatever the farmers weren't using. Well, this girl disappeared. She disappeared one day. The last place she was seen was at the farmhouse. When they finally found her about a month later, unfortunately, it was at the bottom of that lake. And it's another reason I asked you to have the kiddies, leave the room. This is just not a good story for children to hear. So they're farming, they're going, through the fall. comes now, October, favorite time of the year, coming up on Halloween. Sean starts talking to this girl about, hey, you remember when, you used to dress up like an emo chick and they called you the witch and the warlock and all that stuff, and it was rumored that you were kind of like into hocus pocus and black magic and you did seances and stuff. And he came out and he asked her, is there truth to any of that? And he told me at Costco that she got such a devious smile came across her face when he asked her that question, that it terrified him, and he felt the hair on his arms stand up. And she said, well, every bit of it's true. She goes, I just I haven't had anybody to practice with since, so-and-so, he lost his life. And Sean was just like, oh, OMG, am I with a nutcase? Did I go and drop out of college? Miss the opportunity to be the first person in my family to graduate from college to come live on a 200-acre farm in Kentucky with a lunatic? It's a good book, by the way. And you can get my book, The Lunatic, in print with an autograph from our Etsy store. The link is in the description box below. And so she said to him, she says, let's have a seance. Would you like to have a seance? And she explained to him about how she can't call out particular spirits, or she couldn't call out particular spirits. What she could do is she could attract spirits associated with either herself or the person with whom she was having a seance. Like maybe Sean might have a dead grandparent or a dead friend. Those spirits might be attracted to her seance, or if either of them were in the presence of anyone when they passed on, those spirits might be attracted as well. Sean said yes, he told me in the Costco, just out of it was the only thing he felt like he could say. So they did. She broke out some candles, they dimmed the lights. Here we are at the time, floating towards Halloween. The veil was very thin. She has a seance and she goes into a trance. Sean said it was almost like a comatose state, and her head would go forward and her eyes would, he could see her eyes kind of rolling up in her head a little bit, and it's almost like she was in a coma. And then the spirits would talk through her. Well, she starts mumbling, and they have a candle. And so all of a sudden, Sean sees the flame on the candle go out. It's extinguished, but yet there's smoke coming up from the wick. And the smoke comes up and it grows and it gets larger. It becomes larger than the normal amount of smoke from a candle should allow the form to become. And it forms the shape of a little girl. And the little girl, whose eyes are closed as it's formed from the smoke, opens its eyes and looks at Sean. And he said he felt his heart stop. But he said nothing. The form spun around and it saw his girlfriend. And he heard the form say, "You could have helped, but you only watched. Why did you push me in?" You notice how our little friend seemed for me not to want to tell that part, and then it shut up as soon as I did? I think we have a listener out here. So anyway, the girl was still in a trance. Now, when she came to, whether she knew what was said to her by that smoke form or not, Sean never knew. But he said about 2 weeks later, she ended up losing her life in a single vehicular auto accident. She ran into a tree. No alcohol, no drugs were involved. They were not part of the scenario. Sean ended up going back to school. He got his bachelor's, and now he's down here. I don't know how, he's been down here for, I think he came down here right out of college. I don't know. But I said to him when he told me about how she died, I said, that's really odd that she died the same way that the warlock did. And it sounds a little fishy. And he says, he says, I would like to tell myself, I would like to believe that they both did it out of a sense of guilt. And I'm like, guilt for what? And he says, guilt for God knows what both of them have done. So there's your story for the day. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow with another. Thanks for being here for another episode of something at Homesteading Off the Grid and whatever this channel's about. And always remember, no matter how bad the world gets you down at times, stay weird. And watch out for them yeller jackets. They are the harbingers from hell.